Hello and welcome to SureFire Live. Thank you for joining me tonight. Tonight we have a special guest, Theresa Pore, on here tonight, and we are going to talk about office staff, customer service, complaint handling, all the fun stuff that we all have to deal with as business owners. So I'm excited to have her on. Before she comes on, I got a couple announcements. We just wrapped up the Sweepway Cancer Rally that we did in Withville, Virginia. Thank you to all those who came, all those who donated, all those who rode motorcycles, rode cars, drove trucks. We had a blast. We got there into Withville, Virginia, which is a really cool little Main Street America area. And we had this really cool hotel called the Bowling Wilson Hotel that we stayed at. We had our dinner that night, and we talked about all the things. Sweepway Cancer has now raised over $300,000 as an organization, given away a little over $200,000, and we have more to give away. And we run pretty clean. And we had a lot of testimonials about people that were touched by cancer, people who had been Sweepway Cancer had helped. And we are going to have some other fundraiser stuff. Our rally shirts and our gift bags are going to make available for people. If you couldn't make them, but you like a swag bag, which is a shirt, either men's or women's or both, if you want. We had a tumbler that, like a Sweepway Cancer tumbler, and we had chocolate from Poppy and Peep. We had shirts from Copperfield Training Academy, or training education system, and there was something else in there. So it was a bag. It was a nice bag, so it was fun. And we rode the whole thing, and went through the back of the Dragon, which is 33 miles, 433 turns, just beautiful area of Virginia. We wound up at this big rally that we didn't know was happening. We ran into a big rally that had crazy stunts and motorcycles going crazy, and hundreds of motorcycles and food trucks. So it was really cool. And then we finished out and went back to the hotel. We had a breakfast in the morning that we rode, and we did a toast to kind of the first guy that was a motorcyclist that we kind of named the first rally after, or it was Jim Robinson, who had Sandus Friend Chimney in Mississippi, died from cancer, and he used to ride with us a lot. So funny thing that we do, he was a dairy farmer, and when we go riding with him, he would always go get like a half gallon or a gallon of milk wherever we were, like if we were staying overnight, and then he would drink that whole gallon or half gallon, however long we were there. He just drank a lot of milk. And he always went to bed early. Like, he ghosted us. We'd stay up, and then he would just disappear, and next thing you know, Jim had gone to bed. And so we do a cool thing called a milk toast for him in the morning, and we just to honor that. And he affected a lot of us and still does. So then we rode the Dragon, super fun, had a great time, no wrecks, no close calls, but that being said, next year we're going to do it on the same weekend, it looks like. So we did it June 9th and 10th. It falls later next year, so it's the 13th and 14th, I believe, off the top of my head. We're going to make sure that we're going to try to team that up with that other rally to make sure it happens, and see if a Sweepway Cancer can be part of that bigger rally. So Tommy and I are going to make some phone calls, but keep that date open. I know it kind of clashed with this Warrior Horse Sweeps Week thing happening right now, which a lot of people are going to that, which is fantastic. But next year, Kevin said he's going to have that earlier in the year because it's hot down in Louisiana. We're probably going to keep ours about the same. So we'd love to see more people. We have room for you. It's definitely a good cause. So maybe put that in your calendar for next year. Got an early comment. Cody Chitwood, man, thank you, Cody. You're always so reliable. You're right there. Chimney time, baby. Let's do this. Thank you, Cody. It means a lot that you're avid guy on the show, and I really appreciate that. As you guys know, it's a two-way conversation. We're with our guest. A lot of times I have really fantastic specialists on here that have knowledge that they're willing to share. They're on here to help the industry. So please ask questions. So with that being said, I met this lady a couple of years ago. I'd seen her name around in just different Facebook posts, and she happened to come into Nashville for a conference, her and her husband. and we had dinner one night, and she was just fantastic. Her and her husband were just great people. And we started talking, and she does consulting. And so we need content experts on our side. And here we are a couple months later. So let's bring Theresa on. Hey, Theresa.
Hey, Mark. How
How
are
are you?
you?
I'm
Oh,
good.
so good. Hey, I am super excited about your Sweep Away Cancer rally.
Oh, thank you.
Yeah,
Yeah.
I
We
love that.
Well, we would love to have you join us. We will do it this time next year. Oh, you've got a fan already, Theresa. What's up with
I
that?
am a fan of Cody too. I love Cody. He's awesome.
Oh,
Awesome.
that's great. So yeah, hey Theresa, we'd love to have you there. Bring your people, and it's fun. You can drive a motorcycle, you can drive a car, you can drive a work truck, you can drive a pink Cadillac or
Yeah.
anything you've got. We are all about it, and so yeah, thank you.
Yeah, yay. Well, Mark, thanks for having me on.
Yeah.
I've been a fan of SureFire Training Academy since when we were introduced to it in 2020, when the world was going crazy, right?
Right,
And
right,
Royal and I were sitting in our office in Taylor, Texas, and we were like, oh God, what do we do? Right.
right.
And I just want to tell you publicly how much I honor and appreciate you
Thank you.
because you were a very steady voice in a time that everything was uncertain. So we cried watching, well, I cried, Royal didn't really cry, but watching your videos and talking about the industry and talking about your successes that you've had out of adversity. So thank you for being that steady voice for us.
Oh, you're so sweet. I'm going to have you on every week to feel better at the start of the show. Well, that was one of those things that, we had built SureFire having no idea. Obviously, nobody did what was happening. But when COVID happened, we had people like 7,800 modules a month were being taken online off of our platform, and really helping to educate a lot of people. And like you said, kind of a voice of, we're figuring out too. You're not alone. We're all out here. This is the best information we've got today. And it was kind of a communal thing. So thank you for that. And
Yeah.
so let's talk about you.
Okay.
So talk about why are you even on this show talking about chimneys? What gives you the right to
Ah,
even talk chimneys?
that's a great question, sir. I don't know that I have the right, but I'm going to take the
Yes,
opportunity.
you
How's
do have the right.
that?
It's a loaded question because I already know the answers. So yeah.
Well, I grew up in the chimney world. My daddy's from Michigan City, Indiana, and we moved to Texas when I was a little bitty. And in 1988, he started a company out of the back of his truck, probably like most small businesses do, right? And he decided after reading that magazine, remind me the name of the magazine.
Mother Earth News.
Yes, yes. I remember he printed it, he showed it to us, and I was like, I was 7. So just so you know. Like, well, okay, Dad, that looks fun. And he started that company. He was full-time working at the post office, and then started that sideways, on the side. And I remember asking him one day, I was like, Dad, because I would see him, brush out the ashes in our fireplace. And I would say, Dad, why do people pay you to just scoop up some ashes?
Right.
And he said, with that little glimmer in his eye and that little sparkle, and he said, you know what? That's not all we do, baby. And that is so true. That is not all we do, baby, right? We
Yeah.
save lives. And fast forward, I was about 20 years old when Royal, my husband, got introduced to the world of chimney sweeping, because we had our first baby about that time. And Dad said, you know what? It's time for you guys to learn. And I wasn't going to be climbing. I told you, I don't like water. I also don't like roofs.
Really? Okay.
And when you're 4'10", everything is tall, right?
I'm not too far in front of you on that, so I get it.
Yeah, yeah. And so Royal, got into the work, and then, like what sometimes happens in our industry, in any industry, there's risk associated with what we do, right?
Mhm.
And in 2010, my dad had suffered a pretty significant fall. And when he had that happen to him, it was time to say, no more top hat,
Did
right?
he fall in the chimney, doing chimney work?
He did. He fell as he was doing an inspection, actually leaning. Who's our ladder safety people, right?
Yeah.
Leaning over a ladder to just do an inspection. And it was a 1-story house. And sometimes we talked about complacency a little while ago. Sometimes we take steps of complacency and we don't take all the safety precautions that we know.
Yeah.
And it can cost us, right? And unfortunately, he had to say goodbye to the business. And Royal had spent, 12 years working with him at that point. And a couple of years later, we bought Top Hat. And so that's where we've been. And I learned a whole lot more about the little bit more we do, baby situation. Yeah.
Yeah. So, I saw you first, like I saw you do a video on, I think it's on YouTube or on Facebook on dryer vents and stuff. And
Yeah.
I thought you had a great presence about you. I thought when I listened to you speak, I'm like, that's a lady that would be great to talk to and be the spokesperson for your company. And do you still do many of those, or do you just kind of whenever, or how does that work for you guys?
For Top Hat, we actually hired a third-party company that would do more live action stuff, out in the field. They would come out and they would, watch the guys. And a lot of people kind of prefer to see you remember that show that came out a long time ago and it was like Dirty Jobs or something. Do you remember that? Yeah.
For sure. Yeah.
So we learned that people really like to see those live action things. So I kind of stepped back on it, but I'm trying to get Royal to start doing some of those videos.
He'd be great. Yeah. He's got a great, yeah.
Yeah.
So, well, go ahead.
I was going to say most of my stuff, though, has shifted. I do a lot of communication and training. Where I help and where I shine with our company and with other companies is to really put a spotlight on the behind the scenes stuff, the support stuff, right? Yeah. Never going to climb on a ladder. Well, maybe one day. Probably not.
Don't worry about it.
Yeah.
You're not missing anything.
Yeah. I told Royal I wear heels to work so I don't have to get on the ladder, right?
Hey, keep wearing them. Yeah.
Yes. But, I think just as important as it is for us to have really developed skills in the field, it's also, in fact, possibly more important to have really developed skills in your back office, in your support roles, because they matter. Like if your team in the office is not cohesive, if they don't understand their roles and responsibilities, and you don't understand how to connect with those people, you can't have a functioning business, right?
Yeah. It starts with you guys on the phone, that first voice, that confidence, that, the caring, the whole thing. If you don't get it right to begin with, it doesn't go right all the way through, and vice versa. When there's a problem, if you can't handle that right, then, it comes up to somebody else. And now we're dealing with something that, that communication all the way through. And we'll talk about that. Your course is about that listening. Mm-hmm. So many times when we're doing training, we go back and we listen to recordings, we listen to phone calls and listen to the guys talking. And so many times our people didn't listen. Like the person said it and our people were just, in their mind, they went to the next step and the next step and they really didn't hear them. And we'll go back and listen to some things. I'm like, well, they said it right there. Didn't you hear them say, don't leave this, or make sure you do that. And we just went in our next step. So we're going to get into this, but talk about the importance of really listening to people when they're talking to you.
Well, before I got into working with Royal with Top Hat, I was a bank manager and I had gone through all the levels of banking. So from experience wise, my experience on customer service is large corporate, right? Oh. It is understanding the office dynamics and really understanding, in the banking industry, there's two things that people are more connected to than anything in the planet, right? That's their family and their money, yep. Right? Okay, yeah. Maybe 3 is their health. But they focus more on their family.
Your dog, I think, is third.
Yeah. Okay. Your dog is third. Okay. And so in the banking world, it was so important, Mark, so important to learn how to understand what people said. And so, course after course after course I would go to, and, I love Stephen Covey and, all of those major inspirational speakers that are out there. And, one of my favorite quotes is, people don't care how, as Maya Angelou, people don't care, what you say as much as how you make them feel. And communication is all about making somebody feel empowered and important.
Yeah.
And how you do that best is to listen. Right.
True. Yeah. And give it a pause after somebody says something. One of my girls, that is, I say my girls, I don't mean to sound sexist or anything, but one of my ladies,
you can sound sexist.
one of my girls, she has this power about her that she has this tone that's like, I got you. I'm going to take care of you. Like she even says that, say, especially when somebody's mad. And let's
Mhm.
just go on into your course because this is a very hot topic. So one
Yeah.
of your courses that you're putting two courses on SureFire. The name of your company. Let's just talk about that before we get into some details.
Okay.
Talk about
Yeah.
your company that you do this for other companies as well.
Yes. So, okay, Top Hat Chimney is our fireplace company. Love it. Name of my consulting firm is 320 Consulting. And, I'm just going to tell you where that came from.
I love
I
this.
am a faithful person, and I believe that God gives us many amazing gifts. And I believe that each one of us were born on purpose for a purpose, right? And that is my tagline, is helping individuals live their life's purpose by living their life on purpose. But my favorite scripture is Ephesians 3:20. And Ephesians 3:20 says, "For unto him who is able to do exceedingly and abundantly above all that we can think, ask, or imagine, according to the power of him that works within us." And so we have this power in us already to be amazing, to be unstoppable, and to fully live out our purpose. But things wear us down, right? It's our limiting beliefs, our conditions, our environment, our inability to communicate, right? Our desire to be proud, right? I mean, there's all these things. I saw eyebrow raise on that one, right? It's all these things that slow us down from being our absolute best. And not only does it affect us, but it affects our employees, and it affects those people that God put in our charge to have an influence and impact over. So
So
that
good.
is,
You're exciting. I love your passion. I mean,
um,
that made me feel like warm inside.
oh,
But you're right. You're so right about our purpose. And that if you can feel that, it gives you so much energy to do more, to try to do more. If you feel like, that's why you're here on earth, is to help and to do as much as you possibly can as a human.
mhm,
Why wouldn't you? Why
yeah,
would you just coast? Why would you just, I don't know. I don't understand it. I'm wired to just go. And
yeah.
I love the name of your company and what you're doing. So you, you help people. So tell us how you, like, if somebody, how do you help companies? How do you help chimney companies? How do you help other companies?
Sure. So, in my opinion, the company is only as good as the humans that run it, right?
Fact.
If we're broken, if we're hurting, if we're stressed, it affects every area. Have you ever tried to sell something when you needed to sell something?
They can feel it. They can sense it. It won't buy anything when you need to sell it.
Yeah, yeah, we're hungry and they know it, right?
Yeah.
And so my consulting business, I've got really three different areas that I work with. Number one is the business as a whole. And I work with business owners. Can't really see this because of my fun light that makes
Mm-mm.
everybody look better. It is a standard operation procedure checklist, really digging into the business and kind of being like a physician to the business, right?
Right.
What's missing, what's lacking. And most of my SOPs and the things that I'm going to dig into are going to be on the internal guts of the business, right?
Right.
The other side of 320 Consulting is the team transformation, because so many times we as business owners spend our time like spinning our wheels, and we want to just, okay, that person didn't work. Okay, that person didn't work. Okay, that, right? And if I go back to my belief that we were all, made on purpose for a purpose, and we all have a purpose, a lot of the limiting beliefs that people carry is only business owners have a purpose. If I want to live my purpose, I've got to go start my own thing and be a business owner. I've got to go start my own thing and save the world. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And so we've got this conflicting thing. And then we have a whole economy this is a book that I love called You Economy, a movement really that's telling everybody, be your own boss, do your own thing. You don't need them, right?
Right.
So we have all these conflicting things, and we're the business owners, and we're like, I just want to run my business and have people that are happy,
Right.
right?
Yeah.
So,
Everybody shouldn't run their own business. It's really literally, we tell everybody that, or, we first tell them the lie that you have to go to college to have a good life, which we know in the blue collar world is not true. I'm all about education, but that path I'm not sold on anymore. But secondly, the other side is you got to work for yourself. You don't need to say yes to anybody and, be the boss. And man, that's not for everybody too. The main thing is to find what makes you happy and fit in there. Sometimes you've got to run your own thing. You just have to. But sometimes, like my wife, for example, she doesn't want to run her own thing, but man, she's a great, general. She's right there with you. Let me cut the path. I say it all the time. I'll take the machete and I'll cut the path. But there's a bunch of people that don't want to cut the path, but they like keeping the path clean. They like making sure the trucks run on the path and it stays nice and we get a little wider. Like I'm the guy out there doing that. And they also like criticize me going, hey, you're a little too far to the left. Got to go to the right.
They're helping you.
Slow down, Mr. Machete. But, so let's talk about the courses that you put up there, because I think this is very relevant to where you're going. So the two courses were resolving customer complaints and was that
that's customer service, but resolving customer complaints is one of the aspects of customer
service. It's customer service 101 and communication in the workplace. That was it.
Right.
So let's talk about the customer service 101. What did you make that course about?
Well, the reason I made the course around customer service and really around dealing with customer issues is because a lot of times, business owners have their idea of how we deal with situations and employees have their own idea of how we deal with situations, right? Yeah. And, to understand that customer service is its own thing. We are, in the role that we have, our job and our position is to literally serve, love, support, empower the people that we are supposed to serve, right? And we are in such a mentality in our world that it's all about me. So our walls are up, our fences are up. If you watch reels on Facebook, right? Maybe some of your shows are reels. I get a kick out of the customer service ladies and they're joking around about bad customer service experiences, right? They're hilarious.
Yeah.
But we forget, and I think our people forget that, our number one job is to love on the people that are ready to give us money.
Yeah.
Right.
And when you're on the other side of it and you feel that from somebody, it's like a warm blanket. So like, it's different when somebody really cares and you're really listening. It's a wow factor.
Yeah. And I think truly, Mark, if somebody is on here and they're like, oh, I want to check out those classes, I would say do the course on communication first. Okay. Because once you understand what communication is, serving others is so much easier. Right. Yes. Once we understand that communication is understanding the uniquenesses of the other person and understanding that, what they're saying isn't always what they're saying. Right. Then we can put our service hat on and we can just love them and serve them where they're at. One of the things that's in that customer service process is also like an escalation process, right? And
I'm good at that.
Yeah. Well, because how many times is the person like, well, let me just get the manager. Yeah. And you're like, look,
we talked to
I'm the owner. I'm not the manager. You are paid to manage this expectation, right?
Yeah. Well, real quickly, we got a couple comments. Again, guys, please ask Theresa questions. And as there's time, Bart said, and thank you, Bart, for this. I'm glad I was an early adopter of SureFire online training. It's made a huge difference in our training. Yeah, Bart was like day one, first time I ever showed it. Bart's like, that makes sense. Check. And he was like right off the bat. And then Chuck House, thanks, Chuck, for joining us. Chuck, he says, preach. First impressions, listen with empathy, have systems in place to meet customers' needs. That's what you're talking about here. So continue with that. The first thing is the communication part. Let's talk about, when you get a customer that just, man, some of these customers these days, it feels like they're from a different planet. Like, they're just mean. I just feel this meanness on people. Like, I'll listen to some of these phone calls and my people, but then sometimes it trips them. Like my people get mad and like they start like, but I don't want them to get run over by these mean customers either. Like, how do you handle that?
Well, I think it's situational. Obviously, one of the things that made the biggest difference in our company, and that really helps a lot of companies, is to have solid processes in place. Because one of the things that I know pisses people off more than anything, in all honesty, is when they get inconsistent answers, right? And and that is just a major, major problem. So if you have,
Right.
a lot of times what we have to do is anticipate the problem and back it out a little bit to create some systems behind it to support it, right? But when a customer is angry, really, you just have to let them vent. And sometimes you have to hold the phone a little bit away from your ear, right? And just, and then have empathy. Chuck said on here, listen with empathy. What does that sound like? That sounds like, I understand what you're saying, right? I feel you. Empathy is that feeling word, right? I feel what you're saying. I believe me, I feel it because you're
Yeah.
yelling at me. Right. No, I wouldn't say that, but I feel it. I understand what you're saying. And I would probably be frustrated as well. But let me tell you what I can do.
Right.
Right. And then, so I used to tell Royal whenever we would get frustrated about something, whether it was a customer issue or whatever, right? I would say, well, now we have a new opportunity to write a SOP.
I'll tell you, let me just tell you how I think about some of it. Like when somebody is mad and I'm the owner, one thing I will do is they're like, they're mad and they want to talk to the owner. And this may be totally wrong. I'm just gonna tell you what I do. One thing, I don't talk to them right then. I don't
Yeah.
talk to them right now while they're mad. I'll call them back and I wait for them to calm down. I know they're mad, because when I call them the next time, they're not all amped up. The second thing I do is I will apologize the first time, and I'll say, and I'll listen, and I'll say, I apologize. I don't really say I'm sorry, because I think
Mhm.
I'm sorry is different than I apologize.
Right. It is.
And then I only say it once. I only apologize one time, and now we're going to get to a solution. Sometimes I've heard my office staff say I'm sorry like over and over, and it's just like the person just keeps coming, because when you're too soft, it seems like some people go into attack mode. And so I tell them, apologize, understand it, say, I truly understand it. This is not how we do business. I'm going to make this right. But don't keep, if they keep going back to it, like, acknowledge it and move on. How do you feel about, how would you handle a person that just keeps coming?
Well, sometimes we have Labrador retrievers and sometimes we have Chihuahuas,
Yeah. I
right?
like labs.
Me too. Labs are fun. They're sweet. They're fluffy, and Chihuahuas are mean. And we're in business. We decided to take on this hat of ownership, which means we own it, right? But giving your team members delegated authority limits, helping them, encouraging them, having conversations with them after those hard, customer conversations is a big thing as well, right?
Yeah.
Allow your employees, if they had a situation where somebody was just really mean, I would pull that employee aside and let them talk to you. Because if they're not talking to you, who are they talking to?
Right.
Everybody else.
Yep. That's right.
And now everybody in your office is pissed off about Patty Sue, and then the next customer feels it, right? And
Yeah.
so give them a chance to debrief with you and then pump them up and tell them they're awesome. But when it comes to the customer, I think you're absolutely right. I apologize that that's the way that you feel. I'm
Right.
going to do my best. See,
Yeah.
and you said something earlier about your employee that says, I got you,
Yeah.
right? I used to have a girl that worked with us and she would say, gotcha, gotcha. And I'm like, stop saying that.
Oh, gotcha. That's a little, yeah, right.
Yeah,
Uh,
yeah. It's like, do y'all have Chick-fil-A where you're at? Do you have
yeah.
Chick-fil-A? Okay,
Of course.
so
Yeah.
old banking things. We used to have forbidden words in the banking industry, and my pleasure was a forbidden word because my pleasure almost sounded like piss off, right? I mean, in Texas, it's bless your heart, right?
Exactly. Yeah.
You know,
Tennessee too. Yeah.
in your company, and this is where it gets, it gets very company specific, right? So my training courses are going to be, in the perfect world, these are things you need to know. However, we're going to work with your business owner and we're going to establish what is important for that business owner, right? And
Right.
then we're going to create a process and cascade it down from there. Because you may decide there are certain forbidden words that you just don't use because you have found that they're trigger words, and your people in your office, they don't have the 30 years of customer service experience that I have. I started when I was 8.
Wow.
You know, no, I was 5. Wait, I'm
And
only
I think there's
35.
some child labor laws in there that we need to talk to the parents about.
Yeah, yeah, daddy, why did they pay you? Anyway, they don't have our experience, right? Most of the people that we can afford, right, truly, that we can afford for those customer service, those entry level roles, they don't have the understanding that we do. Yet somehow we put them in that role and anticipate that they figure it out.
Yeah.
That they figure out how to have thick skin, that they figure out how to, do XYZ. And, it's our ownership responsibility to walk through that process with them and remind them they're amazing when somebody calls them a jerk,
Yeah.
and, keep them going on that path. And when you own that customer, should you choose to, if that's what's in your SOP, I think what you said was right on. You apologize one time. I had this manager when I was a brand new teller at the bank. And she says, Theresa, if you don't stop saying I'm sorry every 10 seconds, you're fired.
Right. Yeah. Canadians love I'm sorry.
Yeah. And that
But
just sounds bad. Yeah.
I want, because I would go through and I would listen to some of our stuff, and my people, well, one girl in particular would just say that so much. I'm like, one, I want you to have respect for yourself and I want you to, and because now normally the customer service person is owning a problem they had nothing to do with. The technician left the gate open, or came earlier, showed up later, and now they're on the hook for being the representative. And I just don't. I want them to have a limit to what they do, but then all the power in the world to make it right. And so you mentioned SOPs and scripting. How important do you think that is, and do you do that with companies, or how do you handle that?
So I am not a business coach, and there's amazing business coaches out there which they will say, okay, this is what you need to do.
Yeah.
Do it. I take the role of a consultant, and as a consultant, my role, and it's just different. And here's why. Royal, he might be watching,
Hey,
but
Royal.
when he first started, he worked with some amazing coaches, and Chad is an amazing coach.
Hi, Murray. Yeah.
Yes, probably some of you guys have worked with him. But one of the things that Royal would struggle with in a coaching encounter is, this is what you do. But his mind is, I need somebody to do it for me, like a
Yeah.
plug and play, right?
Me too.
Like I know what I want. I've got this vision for beauty. Like, what is it going to look like in the end, right? But I don't have the skill, right? As Royal, as a business owner, I don't have the skill set to take that vision and break it to a reality. Right. And so that is something that I do at 320 Consulting, is I sit with the business owners and say, okay, what's first of all, what's your biggest issue in your business? Do you know it?
Sure.
Right. And a lot of times they don't know it. Right. So we work through that, and then we dig into, okay, what systems do you have in place? And then, and then we can go through system generation and creation and implementation.
Yeah.
But somebody in the office, this is the thing too. Somebody in the office has to be, I was going to say anointed. That's not the word, but maybe it is. But somebody in the office is responsible for making sure that those systems are actually done. Because if you take the time to create a system and nobody does it, you're just mad.
Exactly. And when they leave, you've lost all that knowledge.
Right.
Like, if you're not spending some time every week making your keys to the castle, making your systems, and that person is gone, it's just Groundhog Day. Now you're starting all the way over every time. And I've seen this happen so much. I know Chuck Roydhouse, and if Chad's watching, they see it, where they never make a system so that if humans breaks, change, something happens, you started all the way over, instead of having, let's get some of your information. Like, my daughter was working with a new employee, and she's like, I'm not sure if this person's going to work out or not. I'm like, well, have you at least got some of the tasks and some of the things that she's doing for you down before you let her go? Like, what, how do we do this? And to me, it's one of the biggest mistakes people make bringing people in, is they never document and have systems that can be repeated by somebody else.
Right. I have two clients that I'm working with right now that are starting small businesses from scratch. Right. And that to me is a fun time because
It's
everything is
fun time.
exciting. Yeah. And we have a blank slate. Right. But I think one of the things with when you're starting out, we're a sponge. But as we get into things and we start putting on this hat and then this hat and then this hat, you lose sight of the things that people should know but they don't know they should know,
Yeah.
right? And
Yeah.
one of the frustrations that we can have as business owners is number one, going back to that communications course, right? If we're not speaking the same language with our people but we're telling them something, there's a problem, and an SOP puts it on the same language.
For sure. One of the best things we ever did many years ago when was one person came to work for me. Her name's Annie. Right off the bat, she just made it for herself, but it became like the office, manual. She just started writing everything I said. She
Right.
typed it up. She put it in the thing, and she just kept going. If I showed her a brochure on, chimney
Mhm.
saver products, she filed that right into the thing. And this was back before we had it all digital. We use Connect Team now and put a lot of that stuff up there. But she just made the office manual. And then when I would come in and say, hey, we're going to change the price on this, or we're going to say this different, she'd go to the page, scratch out what I said, say the new thing, and make me initial it,
Yeah.
because
Yeah.
there were times I'd make a change. I'm like, and then later I forgot I made the change. Like, and they're like, no, you told us. I'm like, I didn't tell you that. So now I have to initial the changes
Mhm.
in the system if I do that. Couple
That's
quick,
funny. I want to share something on that real quick
yeah,
because Royal is definitely a visionary person, right? And he's like 20 billion steps ahead of me with the ideas that he has. And I said, babe, I'm going to create a system for you that you're going to this is going to slow down your crazy idea
he's got the
generation.
machete out there fast.
Because you're going to have to, now when you give me an idea, you're going to have to tell me what that whole process looks like, and but that, I'm glad you said that, because when we talk about building transformational teams, right, teams that are designed to flow in the same direction, they've got to understand and believe that the owner of the company, if you're working closely to the owner, like, in most of our businesses, it's small and it's the team and the owner, or maybe the team and office manager and the owner, right?
Right.
But if the owner is coming in and we're changing stuff all the time, there's not a lot of trust on those frontline people that there's going to be any kind of consistency or safety in their job. And it's a mental thing, right? I learned, as I study all kinds of things. I love neuroscience and how our brains work, and a lot of my courses are based on that. But if somebody doesn't feel safe, and change puts a lot of people in that panic mode, right? If they don't feel safe, they don't trust any process. Well, he's
Right.
just going to change it tomorrow. And then
Right.
they go into those mindsets of complacency or worse, attitude problems, and you don't have a cohesive team.
Yeah. I read somewhere where you said it's not that people hate change, it's they hate the way we change them.
Mm.
And we don't ask enough questions, and we don't help them understand why the change has to happen. And they believe that their reality now is better than the reality we tell them it's going to be when we make the change. They don't believe that. So trust, as you said. And then they just think that, they just don't like a lot of times the way we do it. Even when I know this, sometimes change comes like a wrecking ball in my company. And it's just like, but a couple comments real quick. It says, hey, no Canuck jokes, Mark. I love my Canadians, and you know that, but you guys have some things about you. You're so nice, and I love it. And then here's another Canuck. If she may have said the first one, so she says, "Appointed, not anointed."
Yeah. Well, sometimes it takes an anointing to do that. Just saying.
Yeah, you're right. She also said, Yvette, she's so awesome. She says, I've worked on many committee boards, and I always left my binder Bible behind when I left the position. Standard operating procedures, methods, schedules, passwords, all exclamation or all caps. So my spot was easy to emulate and repeat. That's exactly, if she had just nailed that. If you're have an office and you don't have somebody making making the office manual, how we do everything, you are missing the golden opportunity for when the inevitable happens and that person moves on or something happens. And now we start over. This happened to me really badly a couple of years ago when my head bookkeeper and did all my a lot of my stuff in the office, payroll and all the things, paying the bills. She developed dementia,
Oh,
and all of a sudden we didn't have the passwords. She couldn't remember them. She couldn't remember the emails, like, and all the things just started falling apart. I'm like, wow, we have messed up. All those passwords, all those login information has got to be logged somewhere else, not in her brain. And so
right, right.
we kind of, those are kind of wake up calls. She also says, including when I ran local home show for 15 years. Yeah. Uh, Yvette, she's hot tonight. She says, and include who your contacts are with different suppliers. Yes.
Yeah, smart.
Cody says, you can definitely change too much too often. How do you keep the waters calm during transition? So I'll let you talk about that.
Well, thank you, Cody. I think, one of the best ways to keep the waters calm is to do exactly what Mark did, which was create a place that people can feel safe. When he created SureFire training in the middle of 2020, that was keeping the waters calm in the middle of a transition and a scary time. And I think, for us in small businesses, transition happens all the time and hard things happen all the time. I think communication is one of the biggest things that we can do in it, because number one is it creates humanity in the office, right?
Yeah.
People see, okay, that's Royal. He's pissed off, but he's having a human emotion right now, right? And it creates, and transparency with that communication. It says, this is hard. It's tough. What we're dealing with is a challenge, but we are going to get through it. And Yvette, I see a comment on here that says you have to let your people be part of the change. And you're absolutely right. In the transition, one of the things when I write SOPs, that I always do is I always ask the question, and this answer is printed at the very top of every SOP that I write, and it is, why am I doing this? Right?
Yeah,
What
that's good.
is
I
the
like that.
purpose of this SOP?
Yep.
Because if people don't know why we're doing it, that attitude can spring up, right? That attitude can spring up. Well, I don't know why he wants me to do this, blah, 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 right?
Yeah.
And then not only why am I doing it, but who's responsible for communicating any changes with it? And sometimes in small businesses, it's the owner.
Yeah.
Sometimes it's the office manager. And one other thing I will say on SOP generation, you can have, and I believe this with me. Now, somebody may disagree, and that's cool. We're different strokes for different folks, right? But in my opinion, the person doing the work can document what they're doing, but they're not creating an SOP. The owner leadership team should be the one that creates the SOP. Why?
Mm-hmm.
Because if you give it to the person doing it, a lot of times it's going to be done the way they want to with their mindset versus the way the company needs it done based on the goals of the company. Because we see things as owners from a very high level viewpoint, right? Where our employees see it from their role, most likely.
Yeah. I think too, on that, to Yvette's point, is that, help having the team help develop it, especially if it's different. It gets a lot of different opinions on it. But even that, Steve Jobs said once that just at the point that you're sick of telling everybody about something is about the time they're finally starting to hear it. And that it kind of goes back to your course about communication, and communication for the standard operating procedure, but also communication for any change in this thing. Like, we rolled out a commission structure change. We pay on commission, and it was a pretty sweeping thing because of what was happening with inflation, and a lot of things were, the ground was shifting underneath us, and we had to make some changes or we were going to run out of money. Basically, we're not as profitable as we used to be because of things. Well, no matter how much we thought we communicated and thought it was simple and thought it was, man, when it hit like a ton of bricks, and it was kind of confusing. And one of the biggest things is confusing your people. And that really makes people upset.
Yeah. Confusion, it keeps people stuck, right? Nobody can move when they're confused. There is a section in the communications training that I love, and I'll share it if that's okay. But I think it's, knowledge is power. And one of the things that, Royal and I would struggle with, and mainly with him, is he'd be like, I told them, why did they hear it this way? Right. Or, you hear somebody say something, you're like, I don't understand why they don't see it the way I see it. We're humans. It's like, what? I have two kids, two daughters that are, grew up in the same house, totally different, right? Totally different. And if I say one thing, they'd be like, Mom, one of them's like, Mom's happy, mom's mad, right?
Same situation. They both
Same
think
situation.
Yep.
And what I learned through some of my training is, in any given second right now, boom, 1 second, our subconscious mind processes 40 million bits of information. Like, it is soaking up information about the color pink in my office and all of the things, right? But our conscious mind in that same second funnels like lightning speed that 40 million bits of information down to 15 bits of information. 40 million to 15. Right? So if you've got, let's say, just two people in a room together, right? And you give the best presentation, you're like, dang, I'm the boss.com, right? Like, that was awesome, right? And they are going to pick up different things because their filter process is unique to them. So communication, part of that understanding is there is zero chance that two people are going to process from 40 million to 15 bits of information the same way.
Right.
But when you know that, you don't get mad at yourself so much for or thinking, well, I suck at communicating, or right? You just learn how to understand that there's different types of communication styles, and you learn how to love your people where they're at and communicate, feed them the way they need to be fed.
Yeah. It happens so easily in the chimney industry because we're saying words that we understand and the customer doesn't. And you think you couldn't have been more clear when you said the direct vent this, or the liner that, or the damper, or the flue, or the crack, or the crown. And they'll sit there and shake their head, and then they'll be mad later. And you're like, I told them so clear, and they said they understood, but you just used, 5 French words in the middle of your American sentence, and they didn't really know what you said, but they didn't want to ask, what does that mean? Like, they don't know what you're saying. And so one of the things we've really focused on is recording ourselves and then listening back with kind of fresh ears, like the ears of the customer. And I have to criticize the guys and say, do you realize you just used that word? Or you tried to explain a direct vent fireplace with only words and no pictures, like you're like saying this stuff, radiant heat and liner for, intake air and exhaust air. And it's a sealed system. And like, what?
Yeah. What does that mean? I'll tell you, when my dad, he would, as Royal was working with him and I would go visit him from time to time, I remember one day he said, I had to reline a chimney. And I said, well, what does that mean? And he said, well, I put tiles in it. I'm like, so you climbed down there and you like stuck ceramic tiles into the wall of the chimney? Like, what does that mean?
Exactly. A tile that doesn't make sense to anybody.
Yes. Yeah. And he was like, what do you mean you don't understand?
Yeah.
But that's what people see. So you're absolutely right. We've got to remember that people receive things, information differently. Some are very visual, some are audio, right? And some have to feel things, right? And so we have to, as owners and people who care about our company and care about the people who are serving our company, we've got to speak their language.
Yeah, you do. You have to start so simple and then ramp it up if you need to, like an engineer or somebody that needs the details. Got several comments here. Thank you guys for all of these comments. So Jeremiah works with us. He's a certified technician. And he says, the left hand isn't always communicating with the right hand. And he said kind of the same thing before, where he said left hand isn't always communicating with the left hand. Oh. The funny thing is just you think you communicated and you didn't. There's a famous quote about the biggest misconception about communication is, I can't remember exactly, but the thought that it happened, like the belief that the communication happened, and it didn't. And that's where listening comes really into play, to make sure. I got a guy walking around outside in a cowboy hat, and I'm like, who's this guy in a cowboy hat walking by my window? But he's my landscaper guy. A couple more things. Yvette says, it's called using descriptive narratives. Like when you're talking about a crown, you say the flat cement top on your chimney. It's called a crown, like the crown on a king on a king's head. I think is what you meant to say. Yeah, I like that. I've
Yeah.
never heard that. Yeah. Jeremiah says there is the 5 love languages. Yeah, I love that Gary Chapman book. I'm sure
Mhm.
you've read that. That
Oh
really
yeah.
helped me understand communication with the wife. And she's
What's her love language?
hers is touch, and mine is word acts of service,
Acts of service. Mine's words of affirmation.
words of affirmation.
Royals is touch. Yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah.
what my wife's is touch too. And then Yvette says talking pictures. So yeah, so we've got about 10 more minutes. Let's just talk about if people say, hey, I need help in my office or I need help doing this. Let me put your information up. Is the best way for them to email you or call you?
Absolutely. Well, for now, email is great, and we can have that email communication going back and forth. But they can definitely call or text. My web designer is doing tons of updates on my site right now, which is just theresapore.com. 320 Consulting is part of one of the things that I do. I also am a public speaker and go to different corporate events to try to pump people up and give them some energy. I don't know about you, but my core values, I have 3 main ones in my business, and it's beauty, inspiration, and empowerment. And, I believe I can inspire you, but the motivation comes from within. And that's how I
Yeah.
use my speaking business. And the empowerment really is my coaching and consulting. That
Yeah.
is giving you the tools to help you be all that you are supposed to be. So that's, there's different levels on my website, but it will be live, back live, TheresaPore.com.
So talk about like how do you if somebody wanted to engage with you, is it a phone call, email, and then do you do Zoom calls with people? Do you go to
Yeah.
their businesses? Do they come to you? Like how does it work?
So, it's going to be, I can do any, right? Obviously, we're talking with people all over the United States here tonight. And for some, Zoom calls are the best. If we're going to do a total business systems override, I really want to be in your space.
Right.
I want to see what it looks like in your world, right? Because that's going to give me a lot more opportunity to help. If it is team transformation, we do some team workshops and things like that, that energy is lifted a lot of times when you're in the same space together. But of course, I have courses that can be sent out. I can do individual presentations at on-site or through Zoom.
Nice. We got a few minutes. Talk about when you have a culture problem in the company. Like so many people, this is really common in offices, especially when you got a tight group of people that, somebody is sucking up the energy or somebody doesn't fit.
Mhm.
Talk about talk about what you do in those situations or ideas that people, if you have this situation,
Yeah.
what do you do about it? How do you handle this kind of thing?
Well, I tell you what, those are hard situations.
Yeah.
They don't have to be hard, but a lot of times in our smaller companies, we work with a lot of family members sometimes and people that are close to us, or a lot of these small businesses evolved and we brought in friends and that kind of thing. And so that makes those dynamics a lot more challenging. Chad was working with Royal when we had this one particular person, and he kept saying, well, I'll let Chad coach anybody on that. But, he gave me some really direct advice with it. I love it. And we ended up using that direct advice, right?
Yeah.
Sometimes you have to, one of the scriptures or quotes, excuse me, my pastor says is a little leaven can spoil the whole batch, right? Just a little seed of
Yeah.
right, can ruin it for everything. And a lot of times, you have to, when you have those hard times, you really have to peel back some layers and figure out, okay, what's really going on. 360 reviews is something that I do a lot of times. Get everybody's feedback. Back to Yvette's comment earlier, get people involved. We got to get people involved when things are tough too, not just
Yeah.
when we want to make changes. And a lot of times, that's the time when it's hard that we as business owners want to just I can't deal with that right now. I've got to deal with this or
Yeah.
whatever, right? But when we don't take the time to, figure out what's going on, we could lose a whole team.
One of the things we got away from and that we're getting ready to bring back is reviews. I don't really love review systems and I got away from it for years, but especially going through a lot of change. I think the review system, me and my chief operation officer have decided to get that going again. So to that point, but I'll tell you another thing I have about, when there starts to be a problem. I used to train dogs. I used to train show dogs when I was a kid, and we trained Shetland sheepdogs to,
Oh,
do all the things, Shelties. And one of the things that kind of comes to mind, and not that people are dogs, I don't mean that, but one of the things you do with a dog to make it, to actually make it do amazing things is real short little corrections real fast. So
mhm.
like when the dog, if you need it to stay right by you and it looks over here, it's a quick little jerk. It's a quick thing, a thing. And you don't let the dog run way out there and do a lot of stuff and then jerk it way back and you're mad at it.
Right.
It's a constant quick little, hey, don't do that. Hey, stop doing this. We got to do that. Like, and then it doesn't build. You don't let it build into a thing that has to be unraveled. Because I've done both. I've let stuff like you're walking on eggshells around this person, but I realized if I would have jumped on it so early, so
Mhm.
much earlier, and just didn't allow that. Say, hey, we don't do that. You're not going to say that. You're not going to do that. Even coming in late, and like
Right.
you allow them to have late, and then everybody's late. Now you're mad, but you let it happen and didn't do anything about it. So for me, it's very quick corrections real early. So there's no emotion. It's just, hey, stop doing that. And
Yeah.
you know what I mean?
Absolutely. There's a book called, I think it's called The 1 Minute Manager,
Yeah.
which
And
is a
Blanchard.
great, yes, great book that really talks about that. Because one of the things you talked about a few minutes ago is your employees having respect for themselves, right?
Yeah.
And that and that was around the concept or the theory of, not saying I'm sorry. But a lot of times what we run into is instead of teaching them the respect side of it through behaviors, disciplines, through expectations, clear expectations, right? Instead of doing that, their form of respect comes up a lot of times. If we don't do it this way, it comes up in pride. And then it creates this arrogance that causes those seeds of just negativity in your office,
Yeah.
right? And so we think we're like, well, I'm just going to let it pass this time, or I don't have time to deal with that, or somebody else should deal with that. And we create a lot of our problems. We blame it on our people, but we created it.
We're the main. If you got problems in your office, you better look in the mirror first
Yeah.
and figure it out. Or the other thing is, I mean, just is to get help, get somebody from the outside going, pointing. As owners, a lot of times we don't have enough, nobody's holding us accountable. Nobody's calling us on our BS until somebody leaves. But, you need outside. I'm a big fan of consultants and
Mhm.
coaches and people coming in that are real honest with you, will say the hard thing in a way to help you is it's a superpower. And
Yeah. And they're
I
your
think,
board of advisors, right?
yeah.
And they don't have that internal, oh, I can't say this to Mark because Mark's paying me. No, I have to say this to Mark because Mark is paying me.
I love the way you said that. That's exactly right. That's exactly what I need. Like I used to make fun of a consultant that came in and she would just take a knife right to my heart, right, and cut it out and have it right there in front of me. Just as rough. And
Right.
I said I never had to worry about her stabbing me in the back because she stabbed me right in the
You're
forehead. I knew she was coming. Like there was she's not going to stab me in the back. Another comment: Teresa is an awesome person. Got on late. So Chad. Hey, Chad.
Hey, Chad.
Yeah. Well, let's wrap it up. You have spent an hour with us. Oh, and Cody says, great show. Thanks, Mark and Teresa. Yeah, super
Thank
great. I love your energy. We're going to have you back for sure.
Thank
And thank you for creating the courses. My main thing is that if guys, when I hear about somebody or know somebody that can help our industry, I want to get them out there and let people, be blessed by these people too. And Teresa is one of those people. First time I met her, I'm like, wow, love her energy, love your passion for helping, and you got the heart of a teacher. And man, we need more people like that. So
you.
Jeremiah says, I'm happy I tuned in. Thank you, Jeremiah.
Thank you.
So anything you want to leave the group with?
Oh, I think First and foremost, I kudos to all of you for being on. You know, one of the things, just it's so inspiring to me that you take the time to improve yourself, to improve your mindset, and to be present. Like it's after work,
Yeah.
and you are here, right?
Yeah.
It's 7 o'clock at night, and you're
Yeah.
here. That means that you want to become the best version of yourself, and I honor your time for that. So I hope you got some value out of that. And one of the things that I've told Mark too is, you know, if there is something you need help with, let Mark know and I'll create a course on it. Like I am
Yeah.
happy. I love to share knowledge because that's how we all win.
Yep.
And we are winners. Like we are winners. So
We are.
yes. So and Mark, thank you. It was
Yep.
you are so kind. It was so wonderful getting to meet you when I was at a Mary Kay convention, and you just joined us for dinner, and you
Yeah.
know, and it was such a breath of fresh air. And what you're doing is providing so much hope to all these different businesses who think they're on an island, right? They think they're the only one dealing with these issues, and you give them the hope, and you orchestrate, right? And that's
Mhm.
one of the hardest jobs, is to bring all these resources together. But you love people, and it's
Yeah.
evident. So thank you.
Well, thank you so much. I appreciate it, guys. Well, you're definitely coming back. Just understand that you're going to be part of the show. Love to, as you develop stuff or even any ideas you have or things you're seeing, let me know, because I love your energy. And Yvette said it great. She said, "You're great, Teresa. Lots of smiles and energy. You too, Mark." So,
Thank you, Yvette.
all
Thanks for
right.
being on.
Thank you, Teresa. You have a good night, and we'll be in touch.
Okay, thanks.
See you. What a great I love talking to people that have positive energy and want to help and have the heart of a teacher, and she definitely has that. And again, a lot of people need help in their office, and she has a system for that. So please reach out to her. I put her contact information out there quite a bit. So, guys, I'm going to be off here for a couple weeks. I've got a super cool trip coming up. Not to brag, but I've been wanting to do this scuba dive over in the Maldives. That's over in kind of the Indian Ocean on this liveaboard boat. And you live on the boat, you dive in these beautiful waters. And we had to fly through Dubai to get there. So one of my other bucket list items is what's called Deep Dive Dubai. Take a look at it on the internet. It's the world's deepest pool, built by the richest family in Dubai because they loved free diving, and it's this underwater world that is just sick. It's called Deep Dive Dubai. Look it up. Well, on our way back, we're stopping in Dubai to hit that pool, hit that event. But later that day, we decided to do the world's highest zip line off a skyscraper. So if I don't make it back, just know that I went out, just doing it all. So it's off the top of this building. It's called the X line in Dubai. X line, if you want to look it up, off this top of this thing, it goes right out over the city, but then it goes through the water, over the water, and then it ends. So the next day we can't fly right after a deep dive like that. So you have to wait 24 hours. So the next day we're doing this sand camel rides and four-wheelers out in the sand in a big event out there. So it's going to be super fun. I'll post pictures. Jeremiah, Dubai is amazing. Thank you. I've never been there. It sounds wild. It sounds just crazy. So Teresa said, thank you, Mark. So thank you very much. So I'll try to post some stuff, but I won't have my gear with me. So we'll probably have a couple-week break from SureFire Live. Thank you guys again so much for joining me. It means so much. Yvette, Cody, Jeremiah, all you guys at Chad, Chuck, Bart. There's several people that log in when they can, and other people watch it later, and it means everything. It gives me hope to want to keep doing it, and I love it. So, Bart says this key takeaway from tonight: hope is everything. Spread around. Gosh, it's so right. It is, man. Especially in these times with all the arrows and slings and arrows and crap that's just everywhere. Man, you got to have an internal shield. You got to have a thing inside you that the world can't get to it. You have to have that, whether it's faith, what you have to have something that protects you. You can't let that stuff through. And I was talking about how I kind of don't let the stress of business get to me personally, no matter what's happening and things. Like I've kind of developed this little internal shield that no matter what, you're not going to get to that. I think we all need that. We need that thing. And a lot of times it is it is religion, and it is a thing that you have to develop to keep hope and to keep being a beacon of that, because people need it more than ever. So thank you guys. Hey Amber, thank you. Have a good night tonight, and we'll talk to you soon.